whole year. Our Chief Financial Officer, Caleb Cassim, has made available an additional 500 million rand to purchase more diesel. Of course, the diesel is made much more expensive by geopolitical events and the high oil price that currently prevails at the moment. What took us into stage 6 was the fact that Kriel Unit 2 tripped this morning at 3:39. The Chief Operating Officer, Jan Oberholzer, then consulted with the system operator, phoned me just after that, and by 4:19 we took the decision that stage 6 was regrettably unavoidable. Since then, we have seen Kusile Unit 3 coming back from a submerged scraper chain failure. That has been repaired. The unit is ramping up as we speak, so it's not yet at full load, and that will make a big difference. That is a big unit. It can produce some 800 megawatts. Honor 2 came back, but was then taken off a couple of hours later due to a boiler tube leak. Part of the reason why we have this generation capacity constraint is, of course, that we have a challenge at Koeberg Unit 2 with the reactor headgear. This is a mechanical problem which we need to fix in order to operate the plant safely. I can give South Africa the assurance that we are being extremely cautious, and we are consulting very closely with Framatome, the contractor who is on site, and the experts based in France, as well as by the World Association of Nuclear Operators, to ensure that we comply very strictly with all nuclear safety protocols as we test this unit, and we will not bring back that unit if there is any risk at all. So we are being very cautious there. One of the obvious questions to ask when one thinks about load shedding, particularly stage 6 load shedding, is whether there is any evidence of sabotage. At this stage, I can give the assurance that we have not seen any evidence of untoward activity leading to this spate of trips. We did have an urgent board meeting yesterday, also with Minister Gordon in attendance, and we discussed further steps to be taken. Tomorrow we will be approaching the market to procure whatever megawatts are available on an urgent basis. So we think that we can get about 1,000 megawatts from available generation capacity that we can tap into. Not all of that, of course, is immediately available. Some of it relies on suppliers having to replenish their coal bunkers or secure additional gas supply. But in the case of IPPs, we have a very high degree of confidence that we can urgently procure more megawatts. There may be a question as to the implementation of the presidential task team's recommendations, which the President announced on the 25th of July. The National Electricity Crisis Committee, which consists of a number of ministers, has been operating very well. We've received a lot of support. There are 8 work streams identified that are functioning well under the project management of Operation Vulindlela and the presidency. So we're getting very good support there. But unfortunately, implementing these recommendations will take time. So the procurement, for example, of further large-scale generation capacity will take a considerable period of time. In the interim, we would really wish to appeal to South Africa to use electricity as sparingly as possible. I've already requested municipalities in South Africa to assess where they have non-critical loads that can be switched off. For example, it is very often a case that due to faulty switches or faulty timers, that street lights are burning during the daytime, and if our colleagues in the municipalities can please assist us in ensuring that we avoid any unnecessary load on the system to the extent possible. I will also be engaging with representatives of organized business to request further assistance on managing particularly peaks, and here we are looking for heating, ventilation and air conditioning plants to be switched on later by 9 o'clock in the morning rather than early in the morning when demand is high, and also switch off earlier around about 5 o'clock in order to give us additional breathing space. Similarly, lighting of empty office buildings at night is something that can really give us some room to breathe, and we appeal to everybody to assist us in this regard, particularly the business community, with the wherewithal to come to our assistance in this regard. Where households are concerned, we would request that particularly during peak hours, with other words, from about 6:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock, and then again in the afternoon from 16:30 to about 8 o'clock, that you make sure that you do not run any swimming pool pumps. Please switch those off. Also switch off any unnecessary lights. And where you have a geyser with a timer, please ensure that you do not operate your geyser during that time. Similarly, if you can switch off your geyser, that really helps. You may think that these are insignificant steps, but if 60 million South Africans all play their role, then we can navigate our way through this by also managing our demand. You may be aware that we have seen similar actions being taken by governments in the EU, where advertising billboards have been switched off. The lighting on the Eiffel Tower has been switched off again as a contribution to managing demand and to conserve energy and electricity. And South Africans are urged to do exactly the same thing. So with that message, Sikonati, I'm going to pause and
thank you, Andre. I seem to have lost you. Jan Oberholzer, are you able to give us your update here, please?
Yeah, thank you, Sikonati. I just want to confirm, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks. Andre, thank you. And then morning to all connected. I'll give a little bit more detail and on what the GCE has given us, and then afterwards I'll provide the opportunity sorry, for the acting Group Chief Exec, the MD of our generation business, Rolani Matabula, to also give his inputs. Now, if we look at what happened the last week, and I'll just give high-level overview. On Monday, while we had stage 3 load shedding implemented, we unfortunately had 7 breakdowns, which total of 7 generating unit breakdowns, totaling just about 3,000 megawatts. Now, some of these generators did return during the day. So on Tuesday, we had stage 4 load shedding implemented, and we had an additional 8 generators, that we had to shut down, just totaling under 4,000 megawatts. Now, 6 of those 8 actually did return, or not exactly the same ones, but 6 generators, if you also take the previous day, did return. On Wednesday, again, while we had stage 4 load shedding implemented, shutdown of another 5 generators, totaling just around 2,500 megawatts, and 6 units then did return on Wednesday. Now, at this point in time, on Wednesday, as the Group Chief Exec just said, the diesel and dam levels were running extremely low. So we were using our emergencies extensively. And now on Thursday, still with stage 4 load shedding implemented, we shut down another 5 generating units due to breakdowns, removing just over 2,000 megawatts. 4 of these, 4 generators actually returned during the day. And on Friday, we had a similar day with 5 generators shutting down, just around 3,000 megawatts. So that was what was happened from Monday up until Friday. So we've lost a number of generators, and every time when you lose a generator and you do not have sufficient capacity, for the demand of the country, it means you have to run your emergence, which we unfortunately had to do. So on Saturday morning, we were running extremely low in terms of our emergencies. But unfortunately, on Saturday, we had lost also a number of generators. And then that's when we had to implement stage 5 load shedding, at short notice at 10 o'clock. And that was mainly to reduce the reliance on these emergency resources. Now, during the course of yesterday, we had a number of additional units that we had to shut down, 7 in total. And we were then unable to at all, even if it was lower peak over the weekend, to shut down our pump storage, our water emergency, as well as our diesel at the open cycle gas turbines. Now, as the GCE said early this morning, I was actually working. I usually get up early in the morning to do my admin. I had a call from the system operator saying, we're still running open cycle gas turbines. Our water is extremely low. And so over and above that, we had trips of additional units this morning. And we then had to make a urgent call to implement stage 6, so to lift the level from 5 up to 6. So this is to deal with the fact that our emergencies, as Andre has said, and as well as I've said a few times now, to make sure that we don't deplete it at all. Because should you deplete your emergencies and the system is really in need for those, and you do not have it, there's a catastrophe that will happen. And the system operator will make sure at all times that the integrity of the system is protected. And this is why we unfortunately had them to lift, even if it was 4 o'clock in the morning, the stage of load shedding. Now, generally, we work on 1,000 megawatts per stage of load shedding. And this is roughly correct for most of the weekday, daytime hours. So during, the work week. Now, in fact, each stage of load shedding is roughly 5% of the non-essential loads. Now, this is to ensure consistency in the load shedding schedules. And I think that's important to understand. This is to ensure that consistency. Now, during periods of low demand, such as on a Saturday or Sunday night, now the 5% is a lot lower than 1,000 megawatts per stage. Now, it's for this reason that we needed to escalate to stage 6 to create enough space to shut down the open cycle gas turbines, as well as the water at our pump storage facilities. Now, in general, during the week, we shut down, or we tripped 45 units, just under 22 gigawatt. Now, this compares, unfortunately, exactly the same. It's the same as a week before, where we had 42 units that we had to shut down. Now, some of these, unfortunately, more than once. Now, of the 45 we've managed this week, the breakdowns, we managed to return 38 units so far, totaling just over 17 gigawatts. So it's a net loss of capacity of about 4 gigawatts over the course of the week. Now, the GCS briefly spoke about Kuberg. Now, all I would like to give a little bit more feedback and detailed feedback, and Eskom, as well as Framatome, the original equipment manufacturer, and Framatome actually replaced now during the outage of unit number 2, the reactor head, as well as the control rod mechanism. Now, so ourselves as well as Framatome, so we continue to perform tests on this control rod drive mechanism, and that is to ensure the system is operating as required. Now, the cycling of these control rods has already resulted in a significant improvement, and I'm very pleased to state that. Now, although this issue does not impact the ability of the control rods to perform their safety function, it translates into a future production risk and the risk of future rod slippage or a reactor trip during future periodic tests. So if we have to make a decision, and we will not do that, and I believe the GC has made that very clear, to return the unit to service, we may have trips, and this is why we make 100% sure that the test that we are conducting currently, that the results is of such a nature that we can make this decision and know that it may have very little, if at all, impact on the production risk in the future. So therefore, only once all the testing is complete and all the results, as I just said, are acceptable, we will return the service of the unit to service. But I'd also like to assure the people of South Africa that Eskom has a sufficiently experienced and competent executive team, as well as operational team, to continue ensuring a safe and smooth operation at Africa's only nuclear power station. If we then very briefly look at the reasons for the poor performance. Now, in the early morning of Tuesday last week, we experienced at Kendal Power Station the problems with the coal conveyors. Now, in an effort to reduce the coal burn and to keep the generators on load, the output of all the generators then was reduced to a minimum. This was a correct response. However, it required fuel support to support the combustion of the boilers. And unfortunately, a little bit later, the fuel oil plant tripped, causing the boilers of 3 generating units to trip. Now, this multiple unit trip, and it's important to understand, then put severe strain on the system, even at the time when we had stage 4 load shedding implemented. This meant that the result of the online units had to be run hard at maximum output, and minor defects became problematic, then resulting into numerous unit trips during the remainder of the week. I believe it's important also, and we've mentioned it a couple of times already, that the utilization of our aging coal fleet still remains too high, at more than 90% compared to an industry benchmark of 65%. So we have a coal fleet that is relatively old in age. It is very close to some of the stations to be shut down, and to continue to run these units in red. And while you do have some known risks and some defects that you need to attend to, and you don't have the opportunity to do so, just increase the risk. And then is when you have the breakdowns and trips. But I believe we would like to know more. What is the outlook for this week? Now, as stated, the dam and diesel levels remain critically low, and these must be replenished with a matter of urgency. You may recall that the pump storage and the open cycle gas turbines contribute to just under 6 gigawatts of emergency generation capacity to the system. And without fuel for these resources, an additional 6 stages of load shedding would be required. So it's critical that we make sure that we replenish our emergencies, and we look well after them. So the reliance on diesel generation, particularly this weekend, has drained these diesel tanks at the open cycle gas power stations. And since the fuel, as stated earlier, is transported mostly by road tankers, the diesel tank levels are only expected to be replenished to normal levels later in the week. The implementation of stage 6 load shedding currently, we trust that by early tomorrow morning, the dam emergency will be well looked after, and we may have dams that is very close to full. So that is what the aim is for today. Unfortunately, diesel is not going to be that easy. Now, the Group Chief Exec spoke about what is returning today and what's returning tomorrow. But if we look during the course of the next, say, 5-6 days, we are expecting 18 generators at various of our power stations, which is just above 9 gigawatts, to return to service. Now, I can assure the public of South Africa that all hands are on deck at the power stations, ensuring the successful return of these units. I personally visited 2 power stations yesterday, and I was very pleased to see the leadership of the power stations on site and providing the necessary leadership, visible leadership, as well as support, to the operating staff. So colleagues, well done. Please keep it up. Now, we are currently, and it's also important to just mention this, we're currently running 10 generators at various stations with known risks. And this is totaling just under 6 gigawatt. So while we're having a very difficult time, we are running generators because we do not have the luxury to take them off and fix those aspects that need attention. So we're running with units at risk, of which 4 of these, just under 2 gigawatts, are running at high risk. So looking ahead, stage 6 load shedding will remain implemented until sufficient generating units are returned to service and the emergency reserves levels have been replenished. Now, we are not yet able to make a firm commitment as to when we will be able to ease the current stage of load shedding. Depending on what is happening today, we may be able to drop a stage of load shedding, although I'm making no commitments at 5 o'clock today. So it will depend on the replenishments of the emergencies as well as the successful return to service today. I can just assure again the public of South Africa that the system is monitored closely, and as soon as the situation allows, the load shedding stage will be eased. So, Andre, that is what I'd like to just add to what you have given the public. And Rulani, if I may ask if you do have any other detail that you would like to share, please do so. So thanks, Sikonati.
Yeah, good morning, colleagues, and thanks, Jan and Sikonati. And I'm squatting at a power station here, so my picture may not be that well. But I would not want to talk to many of the issues that yourself and Andre have spoken about. I think it's a mouthful. It covers all the issues that we are dealing with. I just wanted to use the opportunity and to give feedback on planned outages. There is always a question on whether are we getting value from our planned outages. And I want to give a feedback on units that were on outage that we have returned in the past 6 months. Units that we have around 10 units that we have taken for major overall that returned in the past 10 months. Unfortunately, 2 of those are still off, which is Duva 2 and Kubek. So that leaves us with 8. And I just want to take a moment just to give feedback on what has been the status of those units up to now. Kendall 2, it was one of the units that returned in the space of 6 months from now. It's running. Arnold 3, unfortunately, we had to take it off for a tube leak. And Krill 6, it's running. Kosile 3, we unfortunately had to take it off for an SSC 2 days ago, and it's back now. El Letabo 5, it's running. Camden 4 tripped yesterday morning due to a failure on an electric feed pump that resulted in an electric board failure, and the team is busy returning it. So what I'm trying to indicate is that there is a level of reliability on the plans that we are taking out for major general overall. And I know that many a time when we are sharing our feedback on outages, we show a bigger number, which obviously includes short-term outages, 7-14 days, where we do inspections on our critical plants, turbines and boilers. But where we have gone in to do philosophy maintenance, this is the units that I've just given feedback on. These units are on load. Some of them have got minor load losses that are mainly due to common plants, the likes of our cooling towers, which we are still refurbishing, and our ash plants that we are still refurbishing have impact on these units. However, what the message I want to give is that for the units that we have taken on major overall, 8 of them, these units are running and are showing the reliability that we actually expected. So Jan, that is the message that I wanted to just give over and above what you have shared in detail today. Thanks.
Thank you, Rulani. I believe it's over to you. Thanks, Sikonati.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for that update. There is a colleague, Mercedes Besant, who raises her hand. Mercedes, please may I request you to write down your question on the chat box. All of the questions will indeed be responded. I shall start right now and read the questions that we have. Ferial Hafiji of Daily Maverick, yours is really a request to put the chat of unit breakdowns on the data portal. The team has got the message, and keep an eye on that, please. And at a simple level, stage 6 means there's a shortage of 6,000 megawatts of generation capacity at that very moment. I will go to William Hahn of Network 24. Have coal power stations reached a point of no return? In other words, with the unprecedented amount of breakdowns, does this imply that running them in the red has finally caught up with Eskom, and this will continue until new capacity has been brought online? Rulani, would you take that question, please? And I know Andre would like to add to that. Thank you.
Yeah, Sikonati, it is a fact that most of our plants are not in a good shape. There is a lot of work that we are doing to ensure that we recover. There are a lot of projects that we are doing to improve the reliability. But you would know that majority of our plants have aged, and the number of issues that we pick up on a day-to-day basis are enormous. But the team is really doing their best to make sure that we manage this the best we can, Sikonati.
Thank you, Rulani. Andre, do you have anything to add to that, please?
Yeah, thanks, Sikonati, and thanks, William. We have, for a long time now, advocated for at least 3 years for the addition of new generation capacity between 4 and 6 gigawatts. That will give us the headroom that we require to carry out the necessary maintenance. As Jan mentioned, a number of our power stations are now approaching the end of their life, and it's a lot like any piece of mechanical equipment. Think of a car. When a car gets so old that it's no longer reliable, that it costs an enormous amount of maintenance, then you start looking around for a new car. And this is what Eskom has been advocating for, and we sit with a coal-fired generation system where we are doing the best that we can with the system we've got, but ultimately we need new capacity to bridge the gap so that we can meet the requirements of the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Let's just add a bit there. The procurement of the new generation capacity is the competency of the government. Ferial Hafiji has another question. Ferial, I'm afraid your first one I'm not clear on. Is there a state of the system report dated today or yesterday, please? But let's answer the question, and Isabel Fick, the general manager for the system operator, will answer this one. When was the last black start planner or planned, and what is the last stage of load shedding planned for? Isabel, when last did you perform a black start test? And please, can you tell members of the public what is a black start test? Thank you.
Good morning, Sikonati. Good morning, everybody. A black start test is basically when we test various pieces of plant to look at their adequacy should we have an unfortunate situation where we black out. the whole system. It happens on a free yearly basis for different parts of the plant. There's also a number of different tests performed at different intervals. So it's a very difficult question just to bluntly ask when was the last test done. But to give you a date, on the 23rd of August, one of the main tests was in fact performed. What would happen is that we as a system operator would then instruct a number of megawatts to be taken off per province, and the instruction would be carried out by the various control centers of the municipality and distribution on a provincial basis. So that's what would happen, but we do not have any other stages beyond stage 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. You have just answered, colleagues, the question by William Horn, which wants to know what would happen if more load shedding is required beyond stage 8. Isabel Fick is the general manager for the system operator, and Rulani Matebula is the acting group executive for generation. Rolf Wendell of Reuters has got a very short and very important question. How close are we to a total system collapse? Andre?
Rolf, I think we are doing our level best to avoid a total system collapse. That is why we have to impose load shedding. Load shedding is a managed rotational reduction in the supply of electricity in order to enable us to maintain the frequency on the grid at 50 hertz. And that allows us to then keep electricity flowing. Now, if we do not implement load shedding, what is likely to happen is that we will then see the frequency deteriorate to the point where we are unable to operate the grid in a stable fashion. And once that happens, then of course you have what is known as a total blackout. So load shedding is a tool that we use through our system operator, whom you've just met, Isabel Fick, and her team. They do an absolutely magnificent job in managing the various stages of load shedding and making sure that we maintain adequate reserves to comply with the requirements of the grid code, precisely in order to avoid a total system collapse. So I don't think that is an imminent risk. I think this is something that is managed and can be avoided. But of course, we do need the support of South Africa in terms of managing our demand. It's a very important role that everybody in the country can play. But we also need more capacity to be added to the grid as soon as possible. Thanks, Rolf.
Thank you, Andre. Mercedes, the chat box is next to people right at the top there. Please type up your question. Next, we have Mariam Issa of EE Business Intelligence. We understand that forecasting is difficult, but what is the realistic prognosis for the levels of load shedding likely over the coming weeks? Is there any risk we will move to stage 8 and beyond? Mariam, Jan and Isabel have just dealt with that. I hope you do have the answer. Your next question: are you satisfied with the progress which has been made at this stage on the President's emergency plan, and confident that its goals will be reached? In your opinion, do the key officials involved in implementation of the plan have enough sense of urgency? Are there any obstacles? Andre?
Thanks. I think that there's definitely a sense of urgency. We have weekly meetings that take place between 12 and 2 on a Sunday afternoon. So I think that is a fair indication of the level of urgency that has happened. Of course, there are also meetings that take place in the various work streams in between. I can myself attest to the fact that Rudy Dix and his team at the presidency running Operation Vulindlela play a very strict project management role. They follow up regularly to see that documents are produced, approvals are obtained, and that the necessary progress can be made. So I do think that there is enough of a sense of urgency. This is a highly regulated environment. We have to remain compliant. We can't just throw governance out of the window. That would not have a good result. But I think we are making good progress. But like with any major intervention, it takes longer than we all would have liked. Thanks, Ikonathi.
Andre, thank you. The next question again, the last two from Miriam is, Jan, please answer this question. Is it mainly contractors or Eskom staff who are fixing the faults and the trips? Who are the contractors? How much has Eskom spent on maintenance in the financial year to date, and how does that compare with the same period last year and with the planned budget? Have the additional funds which were to have been allocated for maintenance been made available, and how much?
Morning, Miriam. I don't have the details how much we spent on maintenance, but I can let you have it. I'll give the information to Ikonathi, and he can just post it. Your question, it is a combination of Eskom as well, as Eskom colleagues as well as contractors that is assisting us whenever there's a breakdown or whenever we need to do plant maintenance on the units. In terms of names of the contractors, we've got a list. We have contractors, the regional equipment manufacturers. We have, contractors that we can just assist for whatever, task. So we do have a panel, or actually a list of contractors per station that we are using. So if I have to give you the names, that's going to be difficult. Now, if we take, Miriam, it's a good question that you're asking, pardon me. If we take what has happened in the past, in terms of the procurement rules and regulations that we had to follow from National Treasury and the PFMA, whenever we had to execute a service, we had to go out, to the market. And then we had sometimes to choose a contractor that perhaps was not that experienced. And but because of the rules and regulations, that's what we had to do. So we do have some challenges to deal with those quality issues. However, we're in the process now to establish long-term relationships with contractors as well as the regional equipment manufacturers. But again, because of the practices in the past, some of the regional equipment manufacturers, and that's what a contractor does. So they keep a base load of key people, and then they contract in, to skills for those peaks. Now, because of the practices we utilized in the past and what we implemented, some of these regional equipment manufacturers had to let certain skills go, and they also had then to focus on other customers as well. So we're in the process now to get that back onto track, that we have long-term relationships, that there is a sort of sustainability for the contractors, and that they can invest in key people that is available should we need them and when we need them. In terms of the budget, yes, the CFO has made money available. However, I need to come back to the question of the outage readiness. Now, when you plan an outage, that is 24 months before you actually open the breaker. And by then, the money must be available. Now, we're in a situation now that money has been made available. However, some of the outages that we are busy with, we were not that ready in terms of financial initially, and that had an impact on the resources, which includes, the procurement of spares. But I can confirm now that money has been made available by the CFO, Caleb Kasim, in order to assist us to do the maintenance going forward. Thanks, Miriam.
Thank you, Jan. Faisal Patel wants to know, is this current load shedding an act of sabotage? Do we have any evidence to comment on that? Please, Andre Rulani.
No, at this stage, we have no indications that there is any act of sabotage involved. So I would not encourage speculation in that regard. Of course, if we do find evidence, then we will share that with the law enforcement authorities as well as with the public. But at this stage, no indication of sabotage.
Thank you, Andre. Antoinette Slavitt of Rapport newspaper. Do you think it is time to normalize load shedding once the system has been stabilized? In other words, have permanent load shedding in an effort to ensure predictability? Can we do that, Andre?
Antoinette, we have debated this extensively internally, and in a certain way, the planned maintenance that we carry out, one must not forget, also makes a contribution to load shedding, because it is capacity that we plan to take off the grid and that therefore cannot generate electricity. So the normalization of load shedding would be to give us the headroom to carry out maintenance, which we are already doing. We've looked at this, and we don't think that if we have, for example, stage 2 load shedding on a continuous basis, that this will buy us a significant additional headroom that we will be able to use both from a financial point of view, a contractor capacity point of view, as well as from the perspective of Eskom staff and their bandwidth to carry out their daily jobs and carry out all of this maintenance at the same time. So at this point in time, it is something that we have considered, but we have decided not to opt for it and rather continue with our planned maintenance, which is currently sitting in excess of 7,000 megawatts. Thanks, Antoinette.
Thank you, Andre. Wendell wants to know, when do you expect to reach the safety buffer, and what is that currently at? Wendell, I believe that Isabel and Andre dealt with that question, and why load shedding and what amounts would be required. Chris Yeland wants to know when is Quebec Unit 2 due back online. Chris, at the very start, both Andre and Jan answered the question about the tests being conducted and when that unit might return to service, which is when the contractor, Framatome, has given the go-ahead. Vali Padiachi, you have quite a few comments here, Vali. As an MAU member, our membership, municipalities and metro municipalities and their end user customers are expressing significant levels of dissatisfaction and frustration given these increased levels or stages of load shedding. One is, as it's due inter earlier, to increased levels of damage to municipal grid infrastructure due to continuous load shedding and rising levels of theft and vandalism on infrastructure, exacerbated by delayed communications and additional operating required by municipalities where applicable to effect. That is switching at higher stages, etc. This is exacerbated by limited availability of such operating staff and for higher stages. The above frustrations are further exacerbated. Vali, please do pardon me, I don't see questions there. You are making valuable comments that indeed the members of the team and the journalists present can read. Vali is the strategic advisor to the Association of Municipal Energy Users. I could get the name wrong there. Please pardon me. I shall take Miriam Isa's next question again. It sounds like Eskom will be forced to continue to burn diesel at a rapid rate in the months ahead, and 500 million rand is unlikely to cover all of that. How much do you realistically think you will need, and will you be able to get the funding for it? Jan, you spoke to this question earlier. Do you want to add a few more words, please?
Yeah, thanks, Sigunati. Miriam, you know, the GC has said that we've burned close to 8 billion year to date. Yeah, the 500 million has been made available. But should we continue to have the challenges on the system that we have now, I believe that we will double at least, what we have burned so far. And then we also need to understand that it's not only diesel we're talking about. We are also then referring to fuel oil. So whenever you do have a trip of a unit, you most likely, or more than likely, you do need fuel oil to restart a unit. So even on that side, we have a significant challenge where we have invested quite a lot of money year to date, and the indications are that that budget will have to increase as well. And this, as the GC has said earlier, is just putting an additional burden on the financial challenge that we in Eskom that we have. And Caleb, forever and a day, sitting next to me, is coming in and say, Jan, we've got a cash flow problem. Jan, what are we going to do? So we are fully aware of the challenges financially as well as logistically in terms of where we are. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan. Dinin Erasmus of Business Day is repeating the question you answered extensively on Monday, Jan. Does Eskom expect a delay on plant maintenance on Quebec Unit 1, given the recent troubles experienced with Unit 2? Let's remind the public that Unit 1 is currently running and contributing over 900 megawatts to the system.
That is correct, and it's been online for more than 300 days. And the plans are in December to take Unit 1 off and to do the necessary maintenance on Unit 1, as well as the replacement of the 3 steam generators, as well as the refueling of the unit. So that is planned. It is still on track for December. Thank you.
So there will be no delay to that outage at this point. Clyde Marinson says, in respect to partial load losses, are large partial load losses spread across a small number of units, or small partial load losses spread across almost all of the units? Rulani, please, will you tackle that?
Sekonati, it's both ways. So we have partial load losses which are specific on a particular unit, but at times when you have got a common system that has got a defect, either your cooling system, your coal compressor plant, ash plant, it affects a number of units. And I've indicated earlier, stations like Grill, Matla, Tutuka have got, and Kendall have got issues with their common systems that are resulting in a number of units that are on load experiencing partial load losses or unable to do full load because of that constraints, either on cooling or on ashing systems. Thanks.
Thank you, Rulani. Dinin Erasmus says the 1,000 megawatts that Eskom is hoping to urgently procure under a best case scenario, how soon will this be added to the grid? And Angelo Coppola of China Global Television Network, will Eskom pay premium price for IPP power? Andre, please, can you answer those questions?
So thanks, Danine and Angelo. The way that we think about buying additional megawatts is that we will back out our most expensive electricity, which is the open cycle gas turbines. So we are looking at prices that we will be able to obtain in the market that will be competitive with our highest cost alternative, and therefore we can reduce our reliance on diesel and also ensure that on a net basis we will save money by purchasing this electricity. Of course, this is exactly the market dynamic that we are wanting to see. So when our coal-fired units return to stability and our marginal cost goes down, then the market price that we are willing to offer would also go down commensurately. So I think that this is the way that we want to make use of a dynamic market to on a daily basis fix prices from a number of suppliers so that they also can do their calculations and see if it is worth their while to supply power into the grid. But we are very much going to tackle this on a business basis. The companies that we are looking for to procure from, Deneen, would include existing IPPs. It would also include large industrial users that have large generation capacity, Sasol, SAPI, and the like. And from time to time, they have excess megawatts that they are able to put onto the grid, particularly if it makes economic sense to them. So that would be the parties from whom we seek to procure additional electricity.
We seem to be losing you. Can you confirm that I'm audible, colleagues? Jan?
Yes, Iguanati, you are.
Thank you. Andre, I think you've just answered where are you going to procure the additional megawatts you spoke of? Will it be a constant supply going forward, and how much will it cost? Do you need to add anything to that, Andre?
No, I think the sort of timeline that we're looking at is probably in a week or two, depending on how quickly we can sort out the commercials. And the sooner we can get this additional megawatts on the grid, the better, obviously. But this is existing capacity that is available right now. And as I said, we will be going out to the market as soon as tomorrow in order to make sure that we can tap into electricity that is available right now.
You are not able to give the quantum as to how much that could be.
I've already given that quantum. That's the 1,000 megawatts that Deneen is referring to.
Thank you. The next question, it's a set of questions coming from Terence Creamer of Engineering News. Are you how likely is it that we breach stage 6 threshold for this week for the first time? And what does this mean for the plant maintenance program? What will the offer in cents per kilowatt hour be to those that have the estimated 1,000 megawatt surplus? Has the offer been approved by NESA? Andre?
Terence, I think there is a risk, and we need to prepare for this risk, and hence the urgent need for us to replenish our reserves so that we can manage our way through avoiding further stages of load shedding. And this is exactly the reason why we are seeking to fill up our diesel tanks, make sure, as Jan indicated, that we can fill up our dams again, that we can avoid further stages of load shedding. There is a risk. I think given the current performance of the coal fleet, we cannot deny that there is a risk, but we are managing this risk to the best of our ability, using both a lot of maintenance that we're doing at the moment, a lot of repair work that we're doing at the moment, and this will then hopefully allow us to cap the stage 6 load shedding and avoid any further stages. Now, what this means for the planned maintenance program, we do not wish to repeat the mistakes of the past by deferring planned maintenance. We believe we need to continue with our planned maintenance. Also, once a unit has been taken off and it has been opened up for planned maintenance, to return it to service before the maintenance has been completed doesn't make much sense. So that is going to be our approach, that we want to continue with planned maintenance. We believe that to compromise on that right now, again, will kick the can down the road and cause us even greater difficulties further down the line. If I look at the fourth question, the offer in cents per kilowatt hour, this is going to be a dynamic market, so I can't give you an indication what the cost will be. I've given you some idea of how we are going to think about that in terms of backing out our most expensive marginal generation cost. And this is, I think, something that we will address with NERSA once we have emerged out of this crisis. Where we are at the moment, I think we should proceed with the full support, obviously, of our shareholder department, which I've discussed this morning with Minister Gordhan, and we will be proceeding and implementing such a program, and then at a subsequent stage we will be able to engage with NERSA also on cost recovery.
Thank you, Andre. Jan, Denin's question, you did answer extensively about load shedding the coming week. Do you want just in summary repeat what you said? And there's a question from Terence that you can.
Thank you, Sigunati. Just to deal with Terence's question, the first one, are we considering revising the summer base? Yes, we are. In my inbox box, I have received from the system operator on Friday a proposal that will be tabled now to the Exco Operations Committee, which I'm chairing, and from there we will take it to Exco and then to the board. So the intention is to relook the base because of where we find ourselves. And just to support what Andre said in terms of planned maintenance, most definitely we will continue. As Andre said, we are in excess of 7 gigawatts on planned maintenance, which is 15% of our installed capacity, and installed capacity in this case includes the emergency generation, as a whole. So we are really moving forward in terms of planned maintenance. However, the success will be to make sure that the maintenance are done successfully and that we don't have trips, when we bring the units back. Now, in terms of the outlook, this week it is difficult. Between the system operator and myself, earlier this morning, as well as generation, we had a long discussion about and the outlook based again on the return of nearly 2 gigawatt today and not losing additional units. We believe that we may still be required to have a stage 6 load shedding tomorrow, because the focus will be, as we've said time and time again, to make sure our emergencies are protected. So for the rest of the week, we will communicate as soon as we have a better view of what the outlook is. So we will currently take it, day by day, and based on the success, we will communicate, but we will definitely have a high stage of load shedding for this week, unfortunately, going forward. Thank you, Sigunati.
Sigunati, Sigunati, I think we need to start wrapping up. We do have power plants to fix, and I understand that there are many questions. What I suggest we do is that we reconvene another media briefing for tomorrow. You and the media desk may answer the questions on this media conference in writing, but I think we need to start wrapping up now, please.
That's fine. Do you want to give us closing comments on that one then?
Yeah, thanks, Sigunati. I think we again have to apologize to South Africa for stage 6 load shedding. We do have a true sense of urgency when it comes to addressing these matters. Our teams are working literally around the clock, and we are engaging with various government departments and entities to ensure that we get the necessary support, whether it be through making available additional funds, whether it is through regulatory interventions. It really is a case of all hands on deck. We do need additional generation capacity. We are trying to source that generation capacity as quickly as we can in collaboration with the IPP office that is located in the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. And we are really seeing some very quick responses from all sides, as there is a keen willingness to address this crisis. In the interim, however, I wish to reiterate our request our appeal to all South Africans to use electricity sparingly. You may think that the 3,000 watts kettle that you boil or don't boil doesn't make a difference. It does make a million people boil their kettles all at the same time. So, ladies and gentlemen, if I can request that we all work together in managing demand, particularly during peak hours, while we face this significant generation constraint. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andre. Colleagues, we will download and send the recording to this briefing as soon as possible. And as soon as we have any other announcement to make, we will call a media briefing to take the country, to make an announcement to the country on the way forward. The downloading takes about 2 hours, so please do be patient with me, and we will do everything we can to respond to the questions that have been written. Thank you very much.